Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us via Google Hangout. We have folks who are joining us via three different modes of communication and interaction for today's informational session. So we have folks who are here in the room. We have folks who are joining us via conference call. And then we have folks who are joining us via Google Hangout. So thank you very much for joining us. I know that right now, if you're joining me via Google Hangout, then you can hear me. That's my understanding. But we have a process right now so that that you're not able to speak in through the channel. We'll allow for an opportunity to change that later on. But for the meantime, if you're joining us via Google Hangout, then it'll be you kind of hearing our presentation and where we go from here. As we start, I want to give folks who are in the room and on the phone an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'll start. My name is Martin Torres. I'm a senior policy analyst at the Latino Policy Forum.
I'm Bill Perez. I'm with the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners.
I'm Carolina, and I'm from the Bush Valley program.
I'm Jose. I'm an intern at the Latino Policy Forum.
And I'm Diana Mendoza. I'm the campaign manager at Latino Forum.
Who is on the phone with us?
We have Elaine Allen. I'm founder of Women for Action.
Others joining over the phone? Okay, sounds good. I believe we have three folks who are joining us via Google Hangout. So I'm going to walk through kind of how we're going to spend our time together today. So we're going to walk you through our voter registration initiative, how we're driving forward this campaign, what our goals are, what our strategies are, and then at the end we'll talk about how we can get folks involved in this initiative, how organizations can get involved, how people can volunteer, etc. We'll answer questions. We'll talk a little bit through the partnership agreement form, which makes everything a little bit more concrete just in terms of coordination with each other. Jose, can they type in questions via Google Hangout?
Not right now.
Not right now, but they can later.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So later on, for those of you who are in Google Hangout, we'll provide an opportunity for you to kind of type in questions. So kind of hold those and put those in the parking lot for now. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Latino Policy Forum, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We do work in the areas of education, housing, immigration, and we have a fourth part of work called our civic engagement platform. Our civic engagement platform consists of a nonprofit leadership academy and the Illinois Latino Agenda. The Illinois Latino Agenda is a coalition of 47 Latino-led nonprofit organizations that come together throughout the year to promote a common policy agenda at the state level. Over the past few years, a large part of that work has been around civic engagement. We've done candidate questionnaires for different races. We've done candidate forums, but we've never done voter registration. So this is the first time that we're doing this work. Jose, do you want to go to the next slide? So why are we doing voter registration? Why are we engaging in this level of civic engagement? In large part, at a macro level, the demographic growth of the Latino community in the state of Illinois hasn't ignited and created the type of political representation and influence that we should have at different units of government, right? I love this picture because I think it represents a pretty good reflection of where we are today in terms of we have huge numbers, but we have very few people who are participating and engaging in the actual process. Is it correct? So what does that look like more concretely? We're 16% of the total population. We're 9% of eligible voters. We're 6% of registered voters. So you can see how much our demographic representation in the state of Illinois diminishes when it gets down to specific metrics around voter engagement. I'm sorry, who just joined us? Over the phone?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, can you introduce yourself, please?
Michelle Garcia.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. Did anyone else join over the phone? Okay, excellent. So, as you can see, again, 16% of the population, 6% of registered voters. When to make this a little bit more clear and concrete, in the 2012 election, there were 355,000 eligible Latinos who weren't registered and who weren't engaging in that election, right? When we look back at the last midterm election was decided by 19,000 votes. So the last time we had a governor's race in the state of Illinois, less than 1% of everybody who came out on election day made the difference in deciding that election. A lot of people who aren't part of this process believe their vote doesn't count, it won't matter. I think what the facts show is that your vote does matter. And I think that's a big part of what we want to convey when we reach out to people and connect with people. So when we started thinking about doing voter registration, we needed to do a scan of the landscape and see what type of environment we were coming into, right? This is a dynamic field where there's a lot of actors who've been engaging at various levels. So we needed to determine who else is doing this work. We know that ICRR has been doing voter registration in immigrant communities for at least the last 8 years, and they've done a really great job at getting that segment of the population registered. USHLI, USHLI, has also been registering voters. They've been focused on kind of the youth vote. But as you can see from the data we had earlier, there's still a tremendous amount of our population, Latino population, who are eligible and unregistered. So we felt like there's space in doing voter registration to continue to make a difference and not have so much duplication when it came to reaching out to Latino residents across the state of Illinois. We also looked at where our national partners are. So we looked at NCLR. The Latino Policy Forum is an NCLR affiliate. We looked at NCLR. We looked at LULAC National, Voto Latino, and a lot of, and NALEO. And none of those entities are doing work in the state of Illinois. Some of them have invested in campaigns and efforts in places like Texas or California or Florida, maybe a Southwest state, maybe New York, but none of them are investing in the state of Illinois. And there's various reasons for that. Illinois is traditionally a blue state. But regardless, when we look at our national partners and the states that they're investing in, Illinois isn't one of them. And so we feel like, again, there's space in doing this work for the Latino Policy Forum and our nonprofit partners to be engaged in this work and to make a difference. Since we thought there was space, we decided to pursue funding. We have received a small grant from Every Vote Counts to do voter registration. So that's who's primarily funding this work. A lot of the national groups have kind of pledged technical assistance in terms of materials, in terms of informing where we go and how we continue to move. We've had great conversations and partnership from folks like Bill Press and the Chicago Board of Elections to provide us with data and information and context around the city of Chicago. And we feel like that's really helped inform where we are and where we're going to this point. So I'm going to let Deanna step in and talk through kind of what our goals are in this campaign.
Thanks, Martin. Hi, everyone. I'm Deanna. Let me adjust here because it's a little bright. Okay, so we're talking about our goals for the campaign. There are two very specific goals. First, we want to register 5,000 Latino eligible voters, and we want to reach 1 million Latinos through a public outreach campaign. In 2010, the reason why we included this is because the election, the last gubernatorial race was very, very close, and the incumbent won by 19,000 votes. And so it's just an idea of if, as a group, we're able to register the 5,000 Latino voters and get them through the polls through our public outreach campaign, effectively, Every Vote Counts wants to reach 100 million?
100,000.
100,000 new voters. So it's significant, the amount of people that we want to reach, and we'll be able to contribute to that number. So how are we going to, how are we going to reach the 5,000 goals? So we're working with nonprofits, and this is why we're having the information session. We'd like to work with nonprofits like you and see how you're able to help us either recruit volunteers to help us do the voter outreach and registration, and also to help us house some of these volunteers. So we're going to be working with nonprofits. We're also putting together volunteer trainings on our end we're working with high schools. So one of the big pushes for our campaign is recruiting high school and college age youth to register to vote, particularly those that are Latino and that are eligible to vote, and also recruiting them as volunteers to help with the public outreach campaign. We're also hitting up all the festivals this summer. So we have a few lined up in September. We have Hispanic Heritage Month. We'll be in Little Village at August Fest this weekend, so we're very excited about that. And we're also talking to contacts at faith-based organizations. So the Archdiocese of Chicago, New Life Covenant, for example. And we're also connecting with members of professional organizations such as SHIP. So it's an example of how we're going to reach the 5,000 Latino voters. In terms of our public outreach campaign, we can, the next slide. So one of the things that we're doing is we're receiving in-kind PSAs from Univision and Clear Channel. So we have a schedule set with them in terms of when we're releasing these PSAs. We're coordinating messaging with organizations. We're getting this entire campaign branded. And we're also going to be releasing op-eds. We're hashtagging the campaign, so we're very excited about that. We have our communications manager on board who's going to be managing that. And we're bringing on someone who's actually just going to focus on social media. And we're actually going to be releasing information on candidates. So we've asked the candidates to complete a questionnaire and let us know where they stand on the issues, and we'll be releasing that information as well. And next slide, please. Martin?
Sure. So we're really excited about this work. We think a lot of the agencies that are going to be involved with us are excited about doing this work. For many of our partners who are going to be doing this work, this will be a new segment of kind of their civic work. So we see this as a real opportunity to increase the capacity of organizations. At a macro level, of course, you want to increase the power and visibility of Latino organizations and strengthen our Latino electoral power. But I think one of the biggest things that we want to do is to enable organizations to position themselves to pursue more aggressive funding in the 2016 presidential cycle. So this is a great opportunity for organizations who do not have a tremendous amount of experience in doing this work in testing our outreach strategy, initiating some strategies of their own, testing their volunteer management and capacity to do this work, and to be able at the end of the day have some deliverables and some metrics that they can show to potential funders moving forward about what their capacity is to do this in a more aggressive fashion in the 2016 election. And we think for a lot of agencies that's a significant draw. And something that I don't want to understate is the opportunity to build and strengthen your volunteer base. So I think, especially with nonprofits, we work with a tremendous amount of them here at the Latino Policy Forum across all our areas of work, education, immigration, housing, civic advancement. We work with about 100 organizations in the greater Chicago metro region. We think all of them really utilize their volunteer base to the best of their ability. This is where we can grow that, we can expand that, we can recruit new volunteers to your organization. Moreover, through the Latino Policy Forum's volunteer base, we could supplement the volunteer base that you already have during specific dates and events where we're going to be planning voter registration with your entity. What's in this for volunteers? This campaign is going to be largely volunteer-driven under the leadership of our nonprofit partners, but certainly when we talk about kind of manpower and getting into the field and interacting with people about the importance of registering to vote, it's going to be significantly based on kind of volunteer effort. We think this provides a great training and leadership opportunity for youth. For those of you who've gone out into the field and you've either done street canvassing or door-to-door canvassing, or you've had a position where you've had to interface with the public for a large percent of what you do in your workday, that's real character-building work, especially for youth who may be a large segment of your volunteer base. If you can knock on somebody's door, if you can catch somebody at a festival and talk to them and convince them that it's important to vote, you're well positioned in transferable skills in terms of communication to do a lot of different things. It's also a great way to get more Latino youth campaign experience. When I was in college, when I was younger, I had an opportunity to get involved in some of these things. And I think if you haven't done campaign work in the past, you haven't been involved in some of these civic things, I think it could really ignite and spark an interest in politics and policy and steer people on a path to greater civic work in terms of professional experience and exposure. And of course, there's the abstract angle of being part of a larger social effort for community empowerment. We left a meeting this morning with some of the leadership behind this work, and next week we have a meeting on branding. We'll be branding this campaign. This campaign is bigger than the Latino Policy Forum. It's bigger than the Normal Latino Agenda, which was the convening organization that started this work. It's about our community at large. And when we talk about that, we want to make sure that we have branding that really reflects that unity, that community vision, and ownership of the individual over their votes. So, immediate next steps. Where are we going from here? We've already begun the process of enlisting nonprofit partners. When we've broken down the segments of our target groups that we want to get, so we want to work with nonprofits to register people. We want to reach out to high school and college age youth, again the congregants of faith-based institutions, and then hit public festivals. We've dissected each of those to determine how many people we need to get registered within each of those to reach our 5,000 goal. And we've set aside about 3,000 for nonprofit partners to work with. We'd like to work with at least 15 nonprofit partners. If we take 15 nonprofit partners as an assumption, as a base to work from between now and October 6th, the initial deadline for voter registration, that's about 200 voter registration cards in total for each organization over the course of the next 8.5 weeks. If you break that down on a weekly basis, that's about 25 registered voters per week for these organizations. And we think that that's a doable and achievable number. And so even for organizations who are doing this for the first time, we feel like with the training and technical assistance we'll be able to provide you, with the volunteer support we'll be able to provide you, and then utilizing the volunteer base and staff capacity that you have internally, that this is a feasible thing for us to do together. I've already spoken about branding. In terms of creating a volunteer base, the forum has a base of its own volunteers. And we'll be looking to expand that base of volunteers here at the Latino Policy Forum to help us with our work on the weekends at festivals, to help us with canvassing certain neighborhoods, and certainly to help supplement the work of our nonprofit partners. We have several nonprofits that are already lined up to do this work with us, and we're excited about who's participating with us in the informational sessions over the phone and via Google Hangout, who are potential partners with us moving forward. But one thing I wanted to articulate is that if you decide to work with us in this venture, you're not going to be in this venture on your own. We're going to be in constant communication with our partners. We'll be on-site at your organizations and in your communities doing trainings on voter registration, and there's a variety of different kind of permutations of the voter registration training, or being in the field of doing that type of work. But we'll be there to do that. We can provide volunteer support. And we'll be doing that both for your volunteers and for your staff. You go to the next slide. Timeline for action. So I mentioned a few minutes ago our October 6th deadline. October 6th is the initial deadline for voter registration. This year there's an expansion in the grace period for voter registration. There's also same-day voter registration. But those are, the latter two are really kind of individual ways that folks can continue to integrate into the process. And I think there's probably less opportunity for a grassroots organizing aspect once we enter the grace period. So we're setting up our timeline, our work plan to get our 5,000 people registered by October 6th. That way, once October 6th comes, we can transition from voter registration to voter mobilization. Early voting starts October 20th, and so we want to push as soon as we can to reaching out to all the folks who we registered with accurate and useful information around early voting, and to a lesser extent, but certainly as part of that messaging, around same-day voter registration. My understanding, and Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, in the city of Chicago, there will be 5 specific sites, 5 central locations where you could do same-day voter registration in the city. But something we need to articulate to people, not just in the Latino community, but across the city, is that likely isn't going to be at your local polling place. And so you need to know where those locations are, what hours they'll be open, when you'll be able to get there if you're kind of late into entering the game. we've spent most of this conversation talking about kind of voter registration, but another goal that we have here is to reach out to 1 million Latinos throughout the state. Deanna talked about the PSAs, the public messaging. Part of that public messaging will be around educating the public around basic information about the election, how you can tell you're registered, where you can go to register, how you can pursue online registration as a strategy, which is a new tool for the state of Illinois. And that'll be really useful. But in August, we're enlisting support. That's part of why we're here today, to enlist your support, to hopefully persuade you and to pique your interest in getting involved in this work. We'll be training volunteers. We'll be training volunteers that are part of the forum's volunteer base. We'll be training your volunteers in your organization, in your communities. And then we'll be registering voters. Those three things will continue to take place through October 6th. We'll likely have a public campaign event, either a launch and or candidate forums in September, likely at the beginning or middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. September 23rd is National Voter Registration Day. So again, we're going to have a tremendous amount of activity around National Voter Registration Day and really build things up towards our October 6th deadline. Again, early voting starts October 20th. We have same-day voter registration for the first time in Illinois. And then at the end of this campaign, of course, we'll be looking to celebrate our success. We're really excited about the goals that we have. We think our goals are achievable. We think they're attainable. We developed work plans that we think we can execute to try and reach those goals. So the big picture question and the main reason why we're here is to figure out how can you participate, how can you engage in this effort, either as an individual or through the organization that you work with. The first thing that we'd like to do is kind of formally sign you on to this partnership. One of the things that you received in your email is a partnership agreement. The partnership agreement is, we don't view the partnership agreement as a formal legal binding document more than we do a non-binding agreement that establishes a common set of expectations, responsibilities, and roles, both for the Latino Policy Forum and for the entities that we're partnering with, right? So as an example, we want to make sure that folks are doing voter registration in a manner in which aligns with the way that we're training people to do that. We've established kind of a training program based off best practices, and we're continuing to get feedback from folks who are giving us advice on the subject. But we want to make sure that that's done in a way so that all voter registration cards are turned in as correct and accurate as possible, so we can make sure that those folks get involved in the program. Of course, we want to make sure that if you're somebody whose entity isn't an organization or an agency that can formally sign on with us, we want to make sure that we can integrate you into this process as well as a volunteer. Right? We all have individual ownership over our participation in this type of program, and we hope to get as many people involved on a volunteer basis as possible. We'd also like, and we've begun to do this with our partners already, is that folks connect us with other entities that can be useful, right? So, say for example, you think it's a good idea for us to go speak at your church or your local parish. We'd be pleased to try and set that up and arrange that so that somebody can come in or a group of volunteers can come in and talk about the importance of the subject and then register people on site at that local faith-based institution or the local community fest that we may not have been aware of. A basic thing that everybody can be involved in at an individual and organizational level is to support and participate in our social media campaign. As Deanna said earlier, we have staff who will be dedicated solely to public outreach and social media coordination. So if you're an entity or partner who's going to be working with us, there will be coordination among numerous nonprofits pushing out the same type of content, the same type of messages, same type of hashtags at different points throughout this campaign. And that'll help us reverberate our message further and make sure that we provide and amplify the messages that we think are important for Latino voters here in the state of Illinois. With that said, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Hello, this is Rosa.
Hi, Rosa. How are you?
I'm good.
So with that said, I'd like to open it up to questions from those who are on the phone, who's in person, and then if we can get the feature over here via Google Hangout for us to get questions that way. We want to make sure that we answer questions that you have and get all of that taken care of. So if you're on the phone, please feel free to kind of speak out and ask some questions. We can get into kind of more detailed or nuanced conversation around our initiative or voter registration in general. If you're joining us via Google Hangout, we're in the process of turning on a feature that will allow you to ask questions that way, so please be patient. We will get that up and running. So with that said, for folks who are joining us over the phone, questions, comments about the direction we're going or how you can get integrated. For those of you on the phone, how does this sound? What are your reactions to this initiative? Hi.
Hi. I have a couple questions. Sorry, my voice is real hoarse. Excuse me. My hoarseness, I'm kind of sick. So, I have some questions in regards to the voter registration. Are they accessible for everyone in terms of the, like, Spanish, English, or Braille?
Oh, so the voter registration forms,
disabilities?
the voter registration forms in general. So
Yes.
the voter registration forms are available both online and in hard copy, in English, in Spanish, in Polish, in Chinese, and a handful.
Yes, in terms of, what about in Braille, or how do you go about it if a person who is blind? Do you know if they have them in Braille?
So Bill is letting me know that they don't have that available in Braille. What you can do for people who aren't able to fill out the voter registration forms themselves, if you download a form or you go online, but I know this for sure when you do this in hard copy, somebody else can fill the form out for them and then sign at the bottom that the person who they are filling out this form for is unable to fill it out themselves, right?
Okay.
And then that can be submitted, and then that person will receive notification from the appropriate election authority that they're registered to vote. And then when they go on election day to register, again, when they go to the polling place, there'll be assistance for those folks to do that as well.
Because I know, for example, I worked at Access Living, and I know, like, a couple years, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, here, even we are a polling place, and we were even having difficulties, because one of our consumers, who is a person who was blind, was not able to do the voting because the polling place we were not able to assist him because nobody, I mean, the polling machine was not able, they weren't able to help him vote because he did not know, there was nobody there to help him read how to, to assist him on the machine to do his voting. So they were telling him to go, I don't know exactly where to, to file a report, or that there's supposed to be some Braille information in terms of how to submit his vote, or some, maybe they can send them like the paper so he could type his voting. His vote, sorry.
So I have Bill Perez here with me from the Chicago Board of Elections. Bill, can you speak on this subject?
Okay, several items. Our electronic voting machines do have the capability for audio for people who can.
They do? Yeah. Wow. Because again, I don't know what happened at that point.
Yes.
Because here we didn't get those.
Only judges of elections in Chicago know that they can help a blind person to use the audio ballot. The audio ballot is in the electronic voting machine, and it gives you instructions in using a pad. And if you still have problems at the polling place, you can call Election Central on election day, and we have a hotline we can guide you or help you, or we can send somebody to help you right away.
Yeah, I think that's what I told them to call, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, in regards to the trainings that you're gonna have, are those gonna be also accessible? We're more than willing to have some, to be part of the training for volunteers. How about? I think because it's very, very important to be involved in the Latino voting.
So
We'll help it also with that in terms of the accessibility.
we'll have the capacity to go into communities, to go into organizations, and do voter registration trainings in English, in Spanish, and our ability to do that training for those with disability, I think, will be a function of exactly what that disability is. If there's a particular set of circumstances that you're thinking about, if you could email me what those are, that way we can better determine what our capacity is to provide training and meet the needs of those individuals. We'll do that, or we'll try and direct,
Sure.
try and find guidance from others who can take care of it.
It's not just like blind but so I would definitely like to follow along with the type of training that you guys have. So I'll definitely shoot you an email.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other questions from folks about this initiative and the direction we're going and how their organizations can integrate themselves?
This is Rosa. Did you already set dates to training?
So we'll be setting, so part of this, we'll be doing trainings and establishing trainings a number of different ways. We'll be, once we've engaged with an entity, say for example, La Casa Norte. So we'll be working with them on voter registration. We'll be working directly with them to train their staff and volunteers, likely on site. And we'll be doing that with a lot of our partner organizations, where we'll be working with them a lot more aggressively and on an individual basis to provide training opportunities for them and their staff on an ongoing basis. For folks who are not affiliated with a particular entity but want to be trained, we'll be setting up other trainings as well, likely in the evenings, probably 2 during the week. And we'll be sending out a training schedule, so that'll provide kind of more information on how people can access those. But there will be kind of an established training schedule for the general public, for volunteers who aren't affiliated with entities. But if you are affiliated with an entity and you're going to be joining us in this work, then we'll likely be coming on site and doing it for your staff and volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
Julian, are you still on the phone?
I'm here, but you answered my question.
Okay. Does this sound like an initiative that your organization would be involved in? And if so, what are some of the kind of initial questions that you would have, or conversations that would need to take place back with the others at your organization?
Are you specifically asking me, Martin?
I am, and I'm hoping that will elicit a response from some others as well.
Okay, and then when you say organization, it can be private?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So,
Okay, I would, first, I believe I can definitely share this PowerPoint.
good.
Is that true?
Yes, yes, feel free. So,
Okay,
the
so I
power,
can share this PowerPoint to my employment where I work, and I can present to them and to other individuals that I want them to embrace this process, like my church. And I would get volunteers to sign up.
wonderful. Yeah, so that's fantastic. And if the folks back at your organization, Replacement Employment, have questions, we can set up an individual phone call with your organization to talk through the process in more formal terms, in terms of what this would look like, what are the commitments, and then how quickly we can get into to do training and get started on voter registration. But please feel free to share those documents, to send them out, and to broadcast them.
Very good.
What do you recommend? This is doing the Mornings for Action. What do you recommend for smaller organizations that have a small staff, small volunteer base? The good thing is I live in a high Latino community, so I definitely believe that I can help. But what do you recommend for someone like me?
So that's a good question. I think that is similar to the circumstances for a lot of the partners that we'll be working with, where there's kind of limited staff capacity, limited volunteer capacity. So what I would say is we'd love to have a conversation with you and think about how we can thread voter registration into your programs or into the way that you interface with the general public through your natural set of programming or special events that you have taking place between now and October 6th. I would also say where there's limited kind of staff and volunteer capacity, then I think the question is how can we supplement your work with our own volunteer base, and how can we assign volunteers to work with your entity on an ongoing basis to register voters. So I think for some organizations, it's about how can they open themselves up to receiving volunteers to continue to do this work over the period of the next 8 weeks.
Okay.
Jose, can you check to see if what's out there questions we will share?
So we will set up a call, or should I email you, or what?
Yeah, so I think in terms of immediate next step, if there's interest in learning more about what the tangible next steps are with a given organization, email me and we'll set up a call, and we'll probably set up an in-person meeting to talk more about your organization, your programming, and what the timeline looks like the next 8 weeks, and opportunities where we can either work with your volunteer base or supplement your volunteer base with ours to get people registered where you are. And then around volunteer recruitment, which is another good piece. If your agencies have Facebook, if your organizations have Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be, then we'll also have a conversation about how you can continue to promote this work via social media, and how we can use those outlets to generate more interest from either folks as volunteers or in sending those folks to online sites where they can register themselves or obtain information that's useful as they think about this election.
Okay.
Yana, would you add anything?
No, I mean, I really hope that if this is something that you're interested in, that you'll email Martin. That's really the main form of contact right now. And really, I just want to reiterate, hi everyone, I just want to reiterate that we are happy to help in any way we can, to visit you on your site, to talk to your staff, train your volunteers, and help in any way we can, just so that we can reach our goals. Do you have a question?
I have a few comments and suggestions. All right. I'm Dr. Rice with the Chicago Board of Elections. ChicagoElections.com. ChicagoElections.com has a lot of information in English, Spanish, and several languages. And you can click into it and find a lot of information concerning voter registrations and other processes and other requirements that we need. Get acquainted with it. We update it practically every day of what's going on. We do have the election calendar, we have the forms and Spanish, English, and so on. Speaking of forms, I've had some kind of experiences. If you register somebody in Waukegan, Rockford, Joliet, Aurora, Elgin, and so on, and you use a form that the Chicago Board of Elections acts on the backside to return it back to the city of Chicago, then there is a problem. And I've had this problem where somebody's registering Waukegan or Rockford and Joliet, and it's sent to Chicago. It's sitting on our office for about 4 to 6 weeks to be processed. Then we find out that it belongs to another jurisdiction, and then we have to mail it to Kent County, Kankakee County, and so on. And it takes another 4 to 6 weeks, and I have people calling me. I registered 12 weeks ago and I haven't received my voter registration card. Where did you register? And where do you live? And I have a problem of explaining to them that the Chicago form was used even though you live in another county. So if you're going to register somebody, make sure that you use the Cook County form or the Chicago form, or use the one in King County, Lake County, Kankakee, whatever. It's just a little logistics, and it minimizes phone calling by the voter. We also do later and after we register people. Chicago was mandated by the federal government to hire 935 bilingual judges of election in 935 precincts for Texas. So we got hit with that in January this year, and we were able to fill that requirement. So we're going to be coming out with a campaign to hire judges of elections in 935 bilingual in Chicago. $170 for that day. They will be training. You can click on chicagoelections.com/PTA, Polling Place Administrator. That's the name of the person. Or you could be just a regular judge of election in your own precinct. We will have that tremendous experience of being a judge of election on election day. Again, $170 or more if you come to something. Carry the keys or 21 days a day and so on. So these are just a little, thing. The only concern I have is if you use a Chicago form in Waukegan, Rockford, Aurora, Joliet, and then we're going to have some problems because they're going to do this statewide.
Yeah, so we're using state of Illinois forms, so that they'll be useful in any jurisdiction. The way our campaign is working is that we have funding through every local comment, as I said earlier. We are, yes.
Oh, okay.
So we are then taking, once we work with you to voter registration, we've trained you, you've gone in security, collected voter registration cards. We're going to collect those from you and turn those into the appropriate election authority. So those things will go through the Latino policy forum. We will then transfer those over to Every Vote Counts. Every Vote Counts is working directly with David Orr's office. David Orr's office at Cook County has agreed to take all the voter registration forms and then disseminate them to the appropriate election authority. So that if you're in Kane County, you're in Winnebago County, you're in McHenry County, or wherever, they're going to come through us. They're going to start with the Cook County Board of Elections. Cook County Board of Elections is going to then transfer them over. So it'll be a little bit more expedited than the process would be if they got kind of submitted to the city of Chicago, where there isn't that kind of explicit agreement and set of work where they're going to be transferring those documents. So we feel like it shouldn't take a tremendous amount of time once we collect them from one organization to get them through the appropriate election authority and then officially filed.
You can also click on Chicago Elections.com for Chicago to not be registered to vote and where you can vote.
That's correct. The Latino policy forum will also have content up sometime next week around the election with just public information about this election where folks can go as a one-stop shop for information about checking their registration status, where they can go to register to vote online, information about the candidates, the importance of voting, etc. So that'll be a tool where we can continue to promote a common site with information that will be useful to the general public. Any questions coming up through? I think something. No. Okay. Any other questions for folks who are joining us over the phone? Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. for this conversation. We are moving aggressively forward. So when we think about this process, again, we're looking at an October 6th deadline, about 8.5 weeks left. And so if you are with an organization that is considering doing this work with us, please reach out to me as soon as possible so that we can set up a time to meet with you either in person or over the phone, and then set up a timeline for training people and getting into the field. We unfortunately, as we continue to move forward, time is not on our side, so we want to make sure that we take advantage of every day we can get into the field and register voters. So please have conversations with senior personnel at your agencies as soon as possible and get connected.
One more item can I add? If a person moves, they have to register again. In Chicago, about 20% of the people in Chicago move within a year. And we're having that problem also because people, oh, I didn't know how to register. You register, I moved. So you have to register again.
That's right. And if you haven't participated in the last couple of election cycles, you may also be taken out of the system, and so you may need to check your registration status and then get re-registered. So thank you very much for joining us. Again, share this information with whoever is most useful to share with. Connect with us, give me a call, shoot me an email, and we'll work together to make sure that we can take this forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.